Okay, if we are live on YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. Today we are on the conversation, as we like to call it, with me, Sayyid and Moosavi, and
Wasif, assalamu alaikum.
just Wasif.
Just Wasif, Ali was good.
Just Wasif. And we have two respected guests here today, Sayyid Abbas Farshori, who, a little background on him is he has a degree in law from Surrey, and he went to the Hawza Ilmiya since 2013, mashallah, and he's currently doing a master's in political theory at LSE.
And I would like to introduce Sayyid, who, mashallah, has been in the Hawza Ilmiya for the past sort of 7 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's more, maybe it's a little bit less. He's been telling us he's having a ball of the time, and mashallah, it's been an amazing experience of from learning about all the different things. But I think what he's shared with me is that he's particularly interested in self-reflection and books around self-development, which is a topic which I'm very much interested in. So, inshallah, many more conversations on this topic to come. But for now,
Okay,
we're going to focus on our conversation.
So the open question for everyone here today to discuss is: do we even need religion? So we'll try and understand this in complete depth, as we like to say. So first of all, we just want to understand why this needs a conversation. Why have we chosen this topic?
It's a question I think people ask at home in the living rooms.
Yeah.
I know it's a conversation that two of us have had so many times. Yeah. We were just having it even earlier today, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's a conversation that
it seems quite redundant, but at the same time, it's like we get it asked so much, but we don't really understand it in its entirety, and like we can never really answer it in proper depth, right? Yeah. Like, so even when a non-Muslim asks us, like, why do you need religion? Like, what do we actually say? So hopefully we can be able to answer that after this session today. So first of all, we need to. Oh, I just want to confirm that this is actually a question and answer. So please be encouraged to ask questions on the YouTube or on the Zoom channel, wherever you find it comfortable. It will be anonymous, so don't worry about that.
So we won't shout out your name unless you want us to.
Yeah, if you do want us to shout out your name, then just leave a little footnote at the bottom. So first of all,
look, I think what we need to do is actually define
religion.
What do we mean by religion? Like, exactly. I mean, there are so many definitions, and that's why we have the two Sayyids on the line as well to kind of give us this Islam perspective. But very first of all, we need to define religion as according to the, let's call it the secular world, right? Yeah. Or the commonly accepted worldview. So 100%. I know now you've gone away and you've done some sort of research, right? So, lay it down.
There's actually a lot of definitions for religion. So first of all, we'll get into like the textbook definition. So first of all, we have here is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. So that's the first definition you'll find on Google. The second one is a particular system of faith and worship. So the first one goes more into God and belief in God. The second one kind of goes into the system of faith. So, like religions, like Islam, Christianity, the whole system that came about from there. And the third one is a pursuit or interest followed with great devotion. So, as an example, it could be our two Sayyids here who have a great devotion and pursuit for Islam, alhamdulillah. So, on that note, we want to ask the Sayyids what you kind of feel your definition of religion is. So, Abbas, what would you say?
Said Haider first. Bismillah, Sayyid.
Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Firstly, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be with all of you, dear brothers. I know everyone else is watching as well. It's an honor to be with you. And I'm liking the mood of this conversation. It's something a bit more lighthearted after a heavy 10 night. So I really enjoy it. Alhamdulillah. You made me comfortable straight away, just being yourselves and being so open. So alhamdulillah. I think you started from a really, really good place. Because a lot of the time, the reason we often go around in circles when it comes to discussions is because you have one definition of religion. I have a different definition. You're arguing according to your definition. Abbas is arguing according to his definitions in Abbas. Me, according to mine, so it's a really good place to start. And I thank you for doing that, It's funny, like the 3 definitions you mentioned, when I was Googling religion, they came up for me as well. So I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. Yeah. So I think I think a good definition of religion that I've come across, which kind of has all those elements inside, is religion is 2 things. The first is it's a set of beliefs, a set of thoughts, that you have regarding existence and the world at large, So it's a set of beliefs that you have. And the second thing is it's a way of life based on that belief system, right? So technically what we'd call them is worldview, like how you view the world, and, ideology, which is, a set of practices based on that view that you have of the world. So that's how I want to define religion for the purpose of this conversation.
Perfect. And would you say that this is the definition from
Islamic
perspective as well? So I know, mashallah, we if anything that we can pride ourselves as being the followers of the elevator of Islam is that we have a wealth of knowledge, right? I to this day I can come across a topic where we don't have an answer for, from the taboo to all the way to the everyday, right? There's always a definition. So I'm curious to know, is there a definition that you have come across? Because certainly, we have gone to the religion of all in the West, which is Google, to find the answer, right? to the all-knowing in a different kind of way, right? But jokes aside, look, where is the definition from the elevator of Islam, right? So I would love to hear if there is a strict definition or even a broad definition.
Right. So the definition I mentioned was a kind of very generic definition, right? So it encompasses, belief. It encompasses worship, because worship isn't only, praying as such. Worship, it's the way you live your life according to your understanding of the world. All of that is considered worship. So it kind of included those. Now, if you want a definition from an Islamic perspective of religion, there's one verse of the Quran which does that, and it's quite a different definition to how we often define religion today. And it's one of my favorite verses. And the best thing is it's so easy to remember because it's 30:30. Surah 30, verse 30. So God Almighty says, set your face towards the right religion, right? The deen, towards the religion, implying, the correct religion is the following. That correct religion is فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. It's the godly nature, the divine nature on which God has created all human beings. And the verse goes on to say, there is no change in God's creation. That is the true religion. That is the upright religion. But most people don't know. So it's a very beautiful and deep definition of, religion. But again, it's referring to the correct religion being that, not every single religion necessarily. So it's, again, just to repeat, summarize, it's the godly nature, a divine nature on which God has made all human beings. And there's no change in this. So this isn't something affected by gender or the place you live or the time zone you're in or when you live. All people are created on a certain nature. And the true religion is that divine nature on which all people are created. So that's the best definition I've come across from an Islamic source until now.
It is the best because it's in the Quran. It can't get better than that.
You can't as a Muslim.
Thank you so much for that. Now over to you, Abbas. I mean, I'd love to hear your view. We would love to hear your view.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, to all of you and to all of the listeners, inshallah. Now, this is a very good place we've begun because you're right, there are so many definitions of religion that becomes confusing and that we're often speaking against each other quite often. This recent point is important because we need to know that in our definition of religion, is God part of that definition or not? And that's a very good place to begin because there are people who define religion by it being a system or an ideology or a set of beliefs or rituals, and there's no need for God in that definition. And that's why people often question, like, is Buddhism a religion anyway? Because it doesn't have a single deistic figure in the way that maybe the Abrahamic faiths do. So that's one of the main issues. Do we think we need to have God or Allah or some deity in the definition of religion? And that's why this verse is very helpful, because for us, at least the true religion or the way to look at religion does imply the existence of a creator or of Allah Azza wa Jal. But look at the methodology. The verse says it is from ourselves that we understand that. It's from our own fitrah that we understand that God exists. So this sets us up very well to know that if we want to know what religion is, we have to look at ourselves first and how from the way we've been created, we understand religion. This approach is a lot better than things like comparing ideologies, comparing religions. I often get quite frustrated in comparative studies because we have no regard for the sacred in those discussions, no regard for the immaterial, no regard for the fitrah, no regard for the true heart of religion. We're just comparing beliefs, comparing prophets, comparing books. But when we look at religion from the human being and from the fitrah, which we should discuss later, I think, we have a lot more of a holistic understanding of faith. So basically, to summarize, in defining religion, I think it's important we go through the Quranic way in having God as central to the definition. And that helps us solve many issues about what is and isn't a religion. By the way, before I finish, there's so many definitions of religion that one philosopher once argued he just created a religion for the sake of an argument. He called it, I think, like the flying spaghetti monster religion.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that try and disprove this using your definition of religion. And they couldn't do it because there was no need for God in the way that the secular person looks at religion. So let's be proud of how we obtain our religion from our understanding of Allah.
Thank you. And going back to the central kind of introduction point, right, which is it's important to get the definition. And alhamdulillah, we are followers of a set of beliefs that we actually have knowledge in every aspect. So again, as you're talking about right there, that we should be thankful for the fact that very clearly, as I say, that's highlighted in Surah 30 and verse 30, it is there for us, right? Amazing. So once again, we can refer back to it. So as I always like to do, there is the al-bayt, but also the literal definition that we have from the Quran. So thank you for that. So actually, this sort of brings me to the first question, I think, in terms of talking about this topic that I would like us to sort of explore, is you've both talked about the divine, as in the inherent, is in our innate nature to have religion, right? And then there is the aspect of the divine in itself. So both the internal and the external, so the rules. So I guess where I'd like to sort of divert the conversation next is it natural for us as humans to follow a religion? Or as many have claimed, actually, religion is a man-made concept. It's a construct. It's a form of control, right? So this question is sort of coming at it very academically, but also sort of asking it from an innate, the point you both touched on. So is it natural for us as humans, as ints, as in literally the creation, to have a desire? And I would love to hear the balance between both the desire, right, but also the need for us to follow religion. Because one might say that I follow religion because I like it, right? Or and conversely, right? I think I would say I don't want to follow religion because I don't like it. So that's the desire part. But then there's the flip side to it. It's actually, no, not only do you want to, but there's also a need for it as well. So I'd love to hear both your thoughts on that. And actually, I'd love to hear Kazim's thoughts to start it off, if that's all right with both of you.
Please.
So if you think about it, like we were talking earlier about like what actually is religion, right? So like which parts of it is it just the wajibat, or is it like everything else as well, which comes under religion? And is it natural? Is it natural to? I don't know. I can't think of it.
But so do you feel, right? Do you feel that you have this innate desire that there is something?
I think all of us have that innate like curiosity to find the truth. I think all humans do have that, and when you go out and actually look for that truth, it's always there. Allah has said, like, he will show you the truth, and then it's up to you to like take that truth and follow it as desired. So I think we do have that in us, but yeah, it's just up to us to actually find it.
Yeah. So and just to add to that, there's a couple of things, and fortunately, I don't have references to hand, but I will actually find and share them with you. A couple of things that from sort of in my professional life and in my kind of reading and stuff, I always hear. One of them was about body language, and one of the most amazing things is actually by a talk by a lady called Amy Cuddy. She's a Harvard professor, and you can watch her talk on body language. It's amazing. One of the amazing things she talked about was that in her research about how powerful body language is, she showed that those people that are blind, I'll make that clear, blind, they do the what she calls the power pose, right? So, for example, you see runners who do the 100-meter race, right? And automatically, once they cross the finish line, no one's ever sort of taught them, as it were, but they throw up the power sign, right? Which is the two arms in the air to say that I've made it, I've succeeded.
Yeah.
In her studies, in her research, she found blind people were doing the same pose. They've never seen it. They've literally never seen it. So how is it that they would when they accomplish something, when they reach a certain point of accomplishment, they throw their arms up? So what they found interesting, and why I'm referencing it, so I think there are some things which are innate, which are within us naturally, we feel and looking for. They don't need to be taught, right? You're already thinking about the accomplishment of that. You're throwing your hands up,
right?
The same thing goes. There's another let's call it story or myth, legend, but I think it's there is research sitting behind it, right? Is that a lot of people that do not believe in God or do not believe in God on a daily basis, or let's call it practicing religion on it, right? When they're in trouble, they say, "Dear God, help me." So these people on a daily basis fundamentally do not believe in God. They do not believe in a higher power, as it were. But then there is this innate nature that the minute they're in trouble, they need something or they require help, they look up.
Yeah.
So the point with those two examples is there are some things which are innate, built in to do it. So
as I said before, the curiosity in us, it's just like people want to know why they're here. But as humans, we ask those questions, which differs us from animals. Like they don't really ask questions. Why am I here?
Exactly.
Like what is my purpose here?
Exactly.
So when they explore that and they understand that there has to be a God. There's so many arguments for like the causation theory and all these design arguments that there is a God out there. So when they actually research this and understand that there has to be a divine inspiration, something out there that is controlling everything, that's the creator, they will have to then naturally fall into understanding that he wants us to follow a guideline, a ruling to live, because otherwise why did he create us?
And I think that's your round off a point, which is that there is a natural order, an innate order that tells us there's something there, even if you cannot say what that something is, right?
Yeah.
There is something naturally within us, not just from a religious perspective, as in believing in God, but in other aspects as well. And the proof of that is because it's there for those other things, it is more than possible for it to be there when it comes to thinking about God. And actually this desire of like, I'm looking for a higher meaning or a purpose.
Exactly.
So I think that's sort of giving the everyday layman kind of view of that. So I of course in this point certainly believe that there is an innate natural way to do it. So I would love to hear again from an Islamic point of view from yourself, if I may, Sayyid, to kick this off with regards to from a religious point of view. Is there once again going back to the direction of conversation being, is it natural for us as humans to have a religion, or is religion a man-made concept?
Right. So I think both of you have highlighted some very good points, mashallah. And there are certain things we find that are innate within us, right? And just to add to the great examples you gave, brothers, you notice a child, a toddler, right? Or even before they're toddlers, a child is crawling, right? Whenever they go to a new environment, go to a new house, what do? They look around. They like to explore. Why? What is that? What are they after? They're after an awareness. They like to know, what is this place? Who's told them? They're not old enough to know that knowledge is something good, therefore I should go. No, it's just within them. They want to know, what's this place? What's in this corner? You notice how many questions kids ask, and as parents, people just get really upset and annoyed at them, right? Stop asking questions. Look, the parents are telling them don't ask questions, but they're still asking, right? So who's taught them that? So just to give another example, to your great examples, brothers, the desire for knowledge, awareness, greater consciousness, greater understanding. Who's taught us that? It's innate within us, And then, as a person goes through life, new aspects of his being open, for example, the desire for love, which he understands later on, or the desire for beauty. When you get older, you have an appreciation of what's beautiful and what's ugly, and so on and so forth. So, for example, a person, they see, a beautiful sunset, and they're like, oh, it's so beautiful. Why are you saying that? You think the sunset can hear you? You want the sunset to give you something? No. It's just innate within you to appreciate beauty. So these are examples of things which human beings innately are after: beauty, love, knowledge, awareness, consciousness. And one word to summarize all of that is perfection. And every human being is power. Another example, power. Some people, their love for power drives them to do crazy things, right? Their love for popularity or fame drives them to do terrible things. This is innate within us. As in, if you gave the most pious person the option that, you can be pious and powerful or pious and weak, no one would choose to be pious and weak, right? Everyone would desire to be more powerful. Everyone desires to be rich rather than poor, okay? Unless there's a higher perfection, they think that richness will make them miss out on. So all of us are innately after perfection, right? And when we come and define God in Islam, we come and define God, Allah, as limitless perfection. It means that every human being is after the same thing. Because if you give someone the choice to have 10 pounds or 100, no one would choose 10. Between 100 and 1,000, no one would choose 100. Okay, so what are you after? You're after wealth in its limitless form. And that's how we define Allah and God Almighty. So the problem is, some people, they go to the wrong address. That's the point. That's what I think, how I understand Islam. Islam's giving you the right address. Don't settle for less. So that's just something I thought might be relevant.
Thank you so much. Abbas, over to you.
It seems to me that we have a really good methodology so far, which is we want to know what the fitra is, what is the kind of innate human qualities, things we are taught, and we're trying to use that to justify religion. So religion is not coming from somewhere else, it's coming from right here, from inside, be it perfection, as respected Sayyid mentioned, or if it's power, like all these things, they come from inside. And this helps us to know where religion comes from. For me, when I look at religion, I do think that religion comes from the most human aspects of the human. Like the most human things which we are, those things are what lead towards religion. So when I was thinking about this, I came to two examples. Number one is aql, reason, rationality. Now, that is a very important part of our. By the way, when we say innate for the listeners, we mean something which is not taught by anyone. It comes from the human directly, like the child or the blind person. No one taught them to raise their hands or to look around. It came from them. Same thing as rationality. No one teaches us to be rational. In fact, some people believe that rationality was like the first thing that was ever created. Like it's one of the most prime things which exists. Many times in our majalis, we have this narration of the Holy Prophet saying, "Awwalu ma khalaqa Allahu nuri," the first thing Allah created was my nur. Other narrations say, "Awwalu ma khalaqa Allahu al-aql," the first thing God created was actually rationality. Like it's so important to the human being. And it determines all things that we perceive, like what we think is right and wrong. We're always using our minds to determine what's right and what's wrong. It determines actually our maqam, like how we use our mind. Nyle, you mentioned an example of the animals. We have this famous saying that the human being can be greater than angels or worse than animals based on their aql. So if they use their minds, their rationality for good deeds, they can exceed the angels. Or if they ignore their minds and commit desires, they become worse than animals, because those animals are also following their desires, but without the aql. So rationality is like so important to the human being. It seems to me religion is about connecting the human being to their mind, connecting the human being to their rationality. So in our books, we have this idea of the inner aql and the outer aql. The inner aql is what all of us have in our fitra, our nature. We're always using our mind to determine right and wrong. And by the way, arguably the bedrock of our fiqh, of our law, is this idea called husn qub aqli, the idea that right and wrong are things which your mind can help you to determine. We don't believe something is right and wrong just because God says it is, or just because Quran says it is. It also is right and wrong, and you don't need anyone to tell you. The human being naturally knows right and wrong. At the same time, we forget this sometimes. We follow our desires. And so God sends someone external to us to remind us to use our internal aql. He sends prophets, he sends the imams, he sends books. All of those things are just to serve this one aim, connecting you to your mind. So your aql is helping you in your moral decisions. However, to add to this, I don't believe the human being is just rational. We are also spiritual beings. We also have our heart. And if our aql is so important to us, so is our heart. So are things like love and perfection. We say this deen is nothing but love. And in the same way, the prophets and the book of Allah and the imams are here to help our minds, they're also here to help our hearts, to teach us how to love. Doesn't our sixth imam say that the heart is the sanctuary of Allah? Let nothing in except Allah. Doesn't Imam Ali alayhi salam say that I stood at the gate of my heart and let no one else in except Allah? So for me, the most basic aspect of the human is the mind and the heart. And the religion comes to help both of those things. It helps you to think and it helps you to love. And that's where I source religion from, the creation, from the human being.
Thank you, Abbas. Thank you, Abbas. I think it's so. What I'm just to summarize on this particular topic within our overall subject of the conversation is that it is innate for us to follow religion. It is our it is our innate desire.
It's in our psyche.
There is a higher calling, or there is a calling, and there is a desire for us to answer that calling, to find purpose, and that purpose in itself is faith, right? And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But like you were saying, some people choose to go the wrong route and end up at the wrong address. But there is a desire to punch that into the sat nav or Google Maps or whatever equivalent it is in your heart to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we're looking for. So
these guys have good metaphors, don't they? Like the sat nav is good.
That's good, because I think what we need to do, we need to link it to the everyday.
Yeah, exactly, the everyday. That's what I was about to just say. In daily life, that's what we're the kind of the base question was, why do we need religion in daily life? Like a lot of people say we don't need it. If we're just a good person, why do we need religion? Like we're already a good person. We're doing this. We don't actually need religion.
It's true. I mean, I am sure all of us in our daily lives have had this conversation, both with Muslims, non-Muslims, with our children, with our younger brothers, about why do we
old uncles,
you know, or about why do we actually need to have a religion? I'm a good person. Why do I need to pray? Why do I need to get up for Fajr? Or why do I say
I actually had a point about namaz and prayers earlier. Was so when we come back to daily life and thinking about what we need as humans as compared to animals and everything. As humans, we're a social creature. We need to actually be around people, and we always need someone to confide in. This is our problems to just everyday life, expressing what do we need to do? We need to express it. We need to tell people about our lives, our family. That's what they're there for, right? So if you really look at it, no human is there for you, apart from our parents. Alhamdulillah, they're there for us, like the majority of us. But no one can really be there for you the way Allah is there for you. Think about it in a namaz point of view. We pray 5 times a day. So what kind of person do you think will listen to you 5 times a day, no matter what mood you're in, no matter what kind of, if you're angry, you're sad, you're alone, Do you think anyone in like mind, your mom, even your mom and dad, like they won't listen to all your problems. They can't always be there to listen to your du'as and give you advice every single time. They can't be there for you, but the Almighty is, and that's what it comes in daily life. We need that person. We need to confide in someone in the same way of partnership with your soulmate, your partner. It's like that, but it's on a different scale. You need God in your life to just be there to support you and to confide in him. He's there always for you, the same way your partner is there for you, the same way your family is there for you, but on a completely different scale. He will never let you down. And that's what I was saying. It's there to support your brain, your psychology, and your body. Like what you were saying before.
I think you make such a profound point that it is not just a spiritual fulfillment that you get, but actually a daily, let's call it, physical side as well. So that I think that's sort of, we can pivot to our sort of next topic of conversation within this subject, right? So is what do we see as the benefits of having a religion from a physical point of view perspective,
right?
A spiritual perspective, and a mental perspective, right? I think up until this point, especially in modern times, it's sort of the social thought has been always focused on the physical.
As it,
yeah. Well, let's pump that iron, get physically fit, right?
Okay.
Right. Then there's been this side of, am I spiritually fit?
Right.
Now, I think there is even more focus on are we mentally fit? So the whole mental health thing. So I think,
and alhamdulillah, we know that Islam gives us all three of those in perfection.
But does it?
Well, in its pure form, Islam does.
And that is, I think, what I would like for us to explore.
What are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that the whole idea of having this conversation is that we don't just say it does. We need to be able to explain and explore, because I think you just made a very profound point that I think me as a parent of a young child can very much understand. Regardless of how much I love my child, there are times where I'm like, oh my God, I'm frustrated. I need you to go to sleep so I can do X, Y, Z. Right? That does not reduce my love for my child, but it does mean and highlight it for me. And I think most people who are parents here or have younger siblings or nephews and nieces, whatever, I think, when you're a child, you realize that no matter how much you love them, there is still this time you feel like, I just need 5 minutes to myself.
100%, yeah.
And they can turn away. And whereas I can always, like describe, I can always turn to God.
Always.
It's always like, no, I'm busy right now. And it's not just me turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's every single one of his creations.
Exactly.
Here, now, on earth and beyond. But that's a whole different conversation, right? Yeah, but everywhere. So I guess my point being here, the conversation we're trying for us to pivot is around, could you, the two of you, shed some light on what are the benefits of having Islam and a religion, So we're not focused on Islam per se, as you know, on this topic. This is about religion from what are the benefits physically, what are the benefits,
and I would like to be
and mentally as well.
Yeah, I would like to be quite specific as well, especially Islamically.
Exactly.
Like the way I mentioned salat and namaz, etc. Very specific. Like, why do we need our religion? Like, why is it so beautiful? What does each aspect? Why are the 5 pillars? Why are they so natural for us in everyday life? So, Sayyid, please shed some light.
I'd like to ask Sayyid Abbas to go first this time.
Sayyid.
That's me in the beginning, so I'll get you back. So.
I did it to you when it was easy. You do it to me when it's hard.
Please.
Firstly, thank you, Syed. You guys mentioned a good point, which is sorry about that. You mentioned a good point, which is Islam holistic enough to help us in those areas as well as the private spiritual?
That's right.
Like, as well as being religious at home, does it have within it the resources for physical health, for emotional health, and social political activism, like all sorts of things? Like, does it have that within it? I think a good way to approach this is, I believe yes, like I do believe it has that capability, and I think we can find Islam within the way we interact in those environments. Like you mentioned, family and children. In the love that you have for your children, I think in that love you would see the love for God. Similarly, the love you have for your parents, in that you see the love for God. I'll give you an example. We love our parents because we have this idea that we originated from them, they created us, but that feeling predates them. It goes back to Allah Azza wa Jal. But we look at our parents for it. Children, we have this idea of loving young children, our children, because we see humanity in them, we see life in them. But really, Al-Hayy al-Qayyum is the one who gave that life in the first place. So it's as if we have the right thing, but we have centralized it in almost the wrong location. Or we have stopped at our children and not seen that we love our children for the sake of God. Same thing for your partners. The love that we have for our partners, the true intimacy, the true beloved nature of that relationship comes from the love you have for Allah. But we don't always see it. Like in the story of Layla and Majnoon, for example, we mentioned this parable to teach you that however much you think a man can love a woman, that's nothing like the way that a man can love his Lord or a woman can love her Lord. So in all these examples, within normal interactions, we see that we stop too early and don't see how God is relevant to those situations. So the first point I would say is when it comes to our family interactions, I would say look deeper, think deeper. Why is this relationship important to you? And if it's true love, I think that we find Allah there. Same thing for beauty. People like painting, people like art, people like visions of delights, horizons, and all those things. But really, all those things are signs pointing towards Allah Azza wa Jal. So I think, firstly, we don't follow through on linking our current experiences to Allah Azza wa Jal. That's the first thing. Second thing is that I do think that the religion of Islam serves our physical health. It serves our emotional health. It serves, I think it's politics. We know what stances to take in society based on what Abu Abdullah did 1400 years ago. Others don't have this type of approach where you can look at a man make a stand on a day that was so long ago, and yet it's more real to us today than any politician or anyone of our day. So it's about informing our stances with the religion of Islam. Physical health is another good point. We are recommended in the religion of Islam for exercise. This is an Islamic travel. We have hadith saying that the human being should be traveling regularly during the year. Physical health, another one. The recommendation to do archery and horse riding, they come from our hadith. The idea of seeing the earth and traveling, physical health. Also, there is health in the way that we have halal and haram food. Even in what we are allowed and not allowed to have, although they're not are primarily medical, they have medical benefits as well. Look at Tibbi Masumin. So I think that every aspect of human life can be governed by Islam. However, there are some people who don't agree. Before I move on to the say, there are some people who think, for example, we cannot use our primary resources to generate theories of medical practice or health practice or politics, because they don't think that Islam is capable of directly being used for stances. So Islam can help you to know what's right and wrong, but it won't create a position for you, an ideology for you. And we don't want to get into that debate. But I don't agree. I think that the religion of Islam is sacred in the sense that everything becomes sacred with Islam. Your exercise becomes sacred. Your work becomes sacred. Imagine, in a capitalist society, work is understood primarily through the means of production, for the individual gaining wealth, through the salary. You're measured and known by your salary. In Islam, we have this idea of halal rizq. Now, the only measure for work is whether or not it's halal income, whether or not you're serving Allah with it. So it changes everything. So to close, I would say that in the religion of Islam, it has within it the resources to make every activity sacred.
Yeah.
Sayyid,
thank you for that, Abbas. Over to Sayyid Haider.
And I think you mentioned some very good points, Sayyid, Abbas, beautiful points. I'd also agree. One point I'd like to add before, because I know Brother Nyle, you mentioned how you like some specific examples. So I was thinking of those very, cheekily while Sayyid Abbas was speaking and writing them down. Okay, so the first one I'd like to mention is the following, that, okay, look, human beings have had a very, everything we're speaking about is surrounding one topic, and that is man, al-insan, right? We're speaking about human beings. our man's physical health, mental health, spiritual health. Okay. The world and man at large, human history, and secular philosophers and whatnot, secular philosophers, scientists, they've had a very long time to come up with a definition of man, and they failed. Everyone defines man in a different way. Isn't that the case? There isn't one set definition of man that everyone agrees on. And here it is that we find our first need for religion. Man has been incapable. They haven't all come together and said, okay, this is the ultimate definition of man. They can't do that. Just in order to know who you are, you're in need of religion. You need to be introduced to your own self. You've had thousands of years, oh human being, to figure things out. You failed. You disagree with one another. One person says that man is just a complicated animal. Someone else says, no, there's more to it, but we don't know what that more is. You're now, now you have the idea of, godless spirituality, right? How that works, I have no idea. You have atheists and people who believe only in that which is physical, but they're like, no, there's more, but we can't prove it, but there is more. You've had a very long time to come up with a definition of who you are, and you failed, okay? And here it is that we need religion to define us. What is insan? What is the topic we're speaking about in the first place? And it's why one of the things the Quran does, it defines you, defines me. This is who you are, okay? That's the first point. The second point, with some practical examples, and I said Abbas mentioned some really good points. He mentioned, some very good theory points, which I really liked. So allow me just to complete it with some practical points. Okay, physically, we have in Islam, we have so many narrations. We have in our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his blessed life and what he taught us, that it's forbidden to harm your own self. There's one narration, your own, as in your own, not spiritual self, your physical self. It's forbidden to harm your body. It's haram. So, for example, there's one beautiful narration. It says that whoever doesn't drink alcohol, whoever refrains from alcohol, just for the sake of saving his own self, not for the sake of Allah, just to save himself, just for the physical benefit, Allah thanks him for that. This is a narration of Ahlul Bayt. You're forbidden to harm yourself physically, number one. Number two, what about the narration that states from the Prophet ﷺ, had it not been hard on my ummah, I would have made brushing one's teeth obligatory with every single prayer or every single wudu. I forgot which one it is. Right? Yes, there are spiritual benefits, but we believe in our definition of man, spirit and body are intertwined. You can't separate them so long as man is in this world. One affects the other. If you get sick physically, you don't feel like praying. If you have a healthy body, strong body, you feel like praying. Like Sayyid Abbas beautifully said, how our ulama order us to exercise. Order us to do that. And they do it themselves. Archery, horse riding, swimming, and so on and so forth, which our narrations have mentioned. Other narrations speaking about the prohibition of cutting down trees, of taking care of the environment because you're its caretaker, taking care of this world, giving plants water. We have narrations about these things. That's on the physical side. Spiritually or spiritually/emotionally, you spoke about the love of a parent, right, brothers? That's a beautiful example. That even the love of a parent, when you want to give an example of someone who loves you more than anyone else, say your mother, right? Nothing's higher than that. In the physical world, we say the love of a mother. Even the love of a mother, at times your mother will get annoyed at you. Isn't that the case?
More than once, yeah.
More than once. There you go, right? And emotionally,
I don't know what you're talking about. I never experienced it.
Abbas, I know for sure your mum gets so mad at you, so much.
No, Ali,
all out of love. We know that's all out of love, and we love them immensely. But the reality is, a mother. Why? Because she herself has her own needs as well. The only one who can fulfill the urge for love limitlessly is the one who has no need for love himself. So that's emotionally. And how beautiful is that? As a human being, be he a believer in God or disbeliever, he will face hardship in his life. Isn't that the case? Everyone will face hardship. The difference is on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, the difference is A believer faces the hardship, but he doesn't face it alone. He always has his Lord with him. And how beautiful is that? But a disbeliever faces the hardship alone. Who does he have to turn to? That itself is so comforting and so beautiful. And mentally, I'd like to give one example mentally. Well, mentally is emotionally kind of similar, but mentally, the belief, just the thought that, if God is on your side, if you do the right thing, no matter what happens, God will support you. Isn't that a powerful thought? Isn't that so empowering? How is it that Lady Zainab alayhi salam was never seen shaking after everything she saw physically and emotionally and spiritually? All that hardship, all that pain, she says, I only saw beauty. And apart from that, you see just a mountain of strength when you look at her. She doesn't shake. Where's that coming from? From a thought, from a belief that everything is in his hands. And he's with me if I'm doing the right thing. So these are a few examples and all of these come back from religion. All of these come from belief in God, and following his religion.
Thank you so much for that, Sayyid. Thank you so much.
Can I quickly add something on that point very quickly?
Yeah, of course.
I really, this idea of we want to understand the principles, so we look at Ahl al-Bayt, is a very unique contribution in our religion, which we must not understate. That we see in practice with them. And with Sayyid Zainab, I always think about this same point of this whenever I think of that saying, it's entirely practical with her. She shows what the verse of she shows what it means to have God closer than your jugular vein. Every moment where in her speech, the strength she speaks with, we see it there. And so if we go back to the topic of why do we need religion, why is Islam so good? Because we have these examples of people who utterly embody the religion. If there's a percentage-wise of how much, it would be 100 with them. They are fully living and breathing the faith in a way that we are at a portion. And having role models like that of Ali Muhammad is just the most precious contribution that we have to world religions generally. I just want to add that because I thought of Sayyid Zainab when Sayyid Haider mentioned that.
Thank you so much. So I would like us to divert our attention to some of the questions that are coming through on the chat, both through YouTube as well as Zoom and the virtual channel. So there's a great question which has come through from on YouTube. You want to take that one for us?
Okay, so Salam, if we are naturally drawn to God and someone doesn't explore religion yet lives a good selfless life, it's possible they could live more religiously than a believer.
Excellent question.
Yes, that's brilliant. So it's possible that they could live more religiously even though they haven't explored religion. As we said before, Allah provides us with opportunities to find the truth. It's just up to us to find to take that initiative and actually research. But what is some thoughts on that? If they can live more religiously, this kind of makes us think about do you still go to heaven if you're not a Muslim or not a Christian, etc. Like that kind of thought. So if we are naturally drawn to God, and we don't explore religion, then
ultimately I think the question is written beautifully and it's succinct and it's clear. But let's look through it again, which is essentially saying if you are living life as a Muslim, as a religious person, right, in the context of our conversation, not so much religion in itself, right? Do you still get to go to heaven as if it's a prize that we're trying to achieve, rather than there's a lot of folks, I'm sure there are people in our lives we look at and we go, wow, you are amazing. If only you are Muslim. I'm rather than saying the negative, I'm saying the positive, right? There are some, I'm sure there are others we look at and you go, wow, I can't believe you are Muslim, right? So, or call yourself one rather, right? So I guess my point here is, and the question really going is, if you live a selfless life and you are a good Muslim person, do you still count as a believer? Regardless whether you commit to a religion or not, or you assign yourself a faith, are you still a believer, as according to Islam. I'd love to hear your opinion from that.
Please go
Who's going to go first this time? I think
you guys have to debate who's
I think
going
you've
first.
passed the buck enough. So
I think we're going to have to flip a coin this time.
Whoever you say, whoever you choose.
Oh,
since you've got the mic, Sayyid, you might as well.
Okay, inshallah, so Abbas can correct me if I make any mistakes and complete anything I leave out. So I think, the idea of, what if someone's a good person? That's what it comes down to. If they're a good person, they're helpful, they're kind, but they don't believe in God, or God isn't really part of their life, but they're a nice person, right? What happens to someone like that? I think we have to question what it means to be a good person. Just because someone is kind to me, is that the benchmark of being a good person? Just because someone helps other people, that's the definition of being a good person? How do you define good, and how do you define person? A moral human being. How do you define morality? How do you define human being? First, let's define those. But you know what? You can't define them without God. You can't define them definitely without God and His religion. If Allah exists, if God exists, right, and He's giving you existence, yeah, not a bit of money, not a bit of help. He's giving you existence itself, yeah, and you're oblivious to that, and you don't care about that, but you're good to your neighbors, yeah. Does that make you a good person? If you're ignoring the one who's giving you everything, no need to say thank you, no need to invest, not important. What's important is being good to someone who gave you, I don't know, like some chips, or invited you for dinner. Does that make you a good person? This has to be defined first, and then we can answer that question. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. I think, in summary, it's always, in a way, and not to put so much, but it's the case of doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons, right? I mean, I'm not, in the layman terms, I think we use this phrase quite commonly, but this is very much about you have to do the right things for the right reasons to get the right results. And that path is
just to add to that, even in terms of doing the right thing, right? Isn't believing in God and thanking Him also one of the examples of doing the right thing?
Exactly.
Someone who doesn't have that as part of their life, they might be doing some right things, but are they doing the most important right things? Are they doing the main right things? On the flip side, though, I know like some people come and say, they're like, you know what? There are plenty of people who believe in God, but they don't actually, they're not actually very nice people, in terms of to other people, right? Well, that person, do they really believe in God? Because there's a difference between Islam and Iman. We have in the Quran, some people came to the Prophet, they said, we believe. Allah said, don't say you believe. Say you're Muslim, but belief hasn't entered your heart. Why? Because it's not showing your actions. Someone who truly believes in God, not on their tongue, in their heart, it's impossible this person isn't friendly to other people. It's impossible this person, because why? Because God Himself wants you to be friendly to His creation, wants to be good to His creation. So,
thank you so much. Abbas, can I actually do a slightly different format? We've got more questions coming through, so why don't I take a different question, and Abbas, you can kick us on this one, and then we'll switch to the Sayyid.
But can I say one quick thing on this one? Can I add like a little remark, a little, like a nugget, like just on this?
Just you've got 10 seconds. You've got 10 seconons, Abbas.
Okay, cut me off when you get bored. So I actually this discussion of hey, listen, guys. This discussion of the good deeds of non-Muslims, which is what it really is one of my favorite discussions in general, because on the one hand you have people who call themselves Muslims but do bad deeds. Look at Karbala. On the other hand, you have people who are not Muslims but are doing great deeds. And it all goes back to, do you think Allah will accept their deeds or not? Maybe, okay, firstly, we don't know who's going to heaven, we don't know who's going to hell. Like, that's the first thing. We cannot start sending people to heaven and hell based on our ideology right now. We can't do that. But we can say that Allah will decide. We have this verse of Quran, Murjawna li amrillah. It's the affair is with Allah. So that's the first thing. The second thing on this point is, just as the respect you said, you have Iman and you have Deen and Iman, you also have Kufr and Juhud. And so at the same time, just because someone says they're non-Muslim, that doesn't mean they rejected Allah. Maybe they didn't know Allah. Maybe they lived their life. No one taught them who God really is. So what they rejected was never God in the first place. They rejected the Islam of ISIS, not the Islam of the Ahl al-Bayt. They never knew the Islam of Ahl al-Bayt.
SubhanAllah.
So
Wonderful
that's
point.
why we need to be so careful in giving conclusions to this discussion. That's why, as the Quran says, when you come across these people, in many cases they are murjaun li amrillah, their affairs with Allah. And if the Quran will not take a judgment on them, I don't think we should either.
And that links back to our previous topic conversation, which was that there is this innate desire looking for the truth. And when we don't find the truth, even if we
find the falsehoods,
it proclaims itself to be the truth. Like, and you used an example of Daesh, right? Our innate nature tells us that's wrong. So I think that links back very nicely to that point of the thing. So I have a question which is not specifically related to, I guess, religion itself, but I think it's talking about Islam as a overall. And I think it's a wonderful question, and I will share my thoughts on it as well. But I will turn over to Abbas firstly. The question is, can you please help with answering and giving a perspective to my teenage boy? I'm reading it verbatim right now. Who questions, why does Islam want us always to be depressed, referring to Muharram? Once again, the question is, are you able to shed some light on for this person, but also for the teenage boy who questions, why does Islam want us to always be depressed, referring to Muharram? And in the interest of time, I'm going to ask all of us to spend a minute or so we can go through, and there are some fantastic questions coming through. So once again, I would say, Sayyid Haider, please, if you can kick us off, taking 1 minute just to give perspective. That is it all about being depressed in Islam, or has our young friend got this slightly wrong?
Very good question. Allah says in the Quran, "Inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun." Those people who are under the authority of God, those who truly believe, they will never be depressed and they will never have fear. So no, Islam never wants a person to be depressed. And as we mentioned, Lady Zainab alayhi salam, who was there, not remembering Karbala, she was seeing it, she wasn't depressed. She says, I only saw beauty. So we don't come to depress ourselves. We come to, in fact, there is a pleasure and there is such a sweetness in remembering Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Okay, no one leaves this gathering depressed. I've never seen one person come anywhere in the world to remember Imam Hussein and leave depressed. They all, because if that was the case, why are you coming next year? Everyone's coming back next year. Everyone's going to Arba'in. Why? It's clear that, you know, people are not silly. People are not getting depressed here. They're getting rid of their depression.
Abbas.
Yeah, I would also add that we are not chasing depression in our love for Abu Abdullah. What we're actually chasing is that when we see him, but firstly, suffering is part of life generally. We're all going to suffer and we're all going to have sadness. But when we see the way that he suffered and the beauty with which he responded to his suffering, that inspires us. So we don't take just his sadness. We take his sadness with the way he dealt with his problems. And that's how we take it with us. And I would say to the respected brother and everybody, no matter what you go through, no matter what you see in life, you did not see 28 members of your family killed in front of you. So if Sayyidah Zainab says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, if she sees beauty, my priority should be, what was that beauty she saw? And that journey of thinking of how is Karbala beautiful, that's a lifetime journey. Every time you go to a majlis, you're thinking of this one thing. Whatever I'm hearing, Sayyidah Zainab saw it and said it was beautiful. What does this mean? And finally on this, the reason why Ashura and Karbala is not depression is because this entire movement leads to the coming of our Imam. It leads to hope. So if you think that's sad, whatever it is, that's not the end. The Imam says that the Prophet says, those who help Abu Abdullah helped my son, the Imam, the 12th Imam. And so there is not depression here. There is preparation and planning and hope. So seek that hope in your connection to your Imam, your 12th Imam, when you attend the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein.
Sense.
So I was going to take it back to the original question of why do we need religion? In this case, it's why do we need the remembrance of the Ahlul Bayt and Imam Hussein and the Shuhada of Karbala. It's is because as people, if I want to take it back very to normal life, daily life again, is we need role models in life. To just as we're living, we can't just live by ourselves and alhamdulillah, just through our parents' guidance. Through, you know, we have scholars, we have everyone, but that's not enough. We need ultimate role models, and those are the Ahlul Bayt. The way they lived their life was perfection, as you said. They embodied Islam 100%. So of course they are our role models. We need to follow that to the utmost, right? And if you think about your role models, you're going to want to remember them, and you're going to want to understand everything they went through. So when we do majalis and remember them in this way, it's not depression. It's not. We're remembering their sacrifice. And when we're sad or mourning them, it's because we want to be like them. They're the ultimate role model, aren't they?
Yeah.
So we want to embody them as well. So that's why the remembrance is needed. So yeah.
Thank you. And I guess just to close on this question, I'll give some very practical points to our on this, right? The first one, and I'm going to answer this totally away from the Islamic perspective, because I think the challenge we have, and speaking frankly to all of us here as parents, as Muslims, as young Muslims, as or according to now as old Muslims, right? I'm referring to myself here, right?
So very old.
So very, very old, right? So this is a question when we ask each and every year, we brings up in a question. I think we need to have these practical conversations. So outside of the realm of thinking about it Islamically only, because it's like you're trying to answer the definition with the definition, right? You can't say Islam is Islam, right? So hence why I'm going to give to round it off, a practical, what does it mean?
Okay.
So I would say my first one, my dear brother, at the very least, for the sake of variety, we need to cry. If you're constantly smiling, that person's considered mad. If you're constantly crying, that person's considered mad. So at the very least, moderation. Right? There is moderation. Balance. It's not depression. It is fluctuation. Right. Don't forget the heartbeat goes up and down. That's how know you're alive. If you have the same thing going all the way through, you're not alive. If you're constantly smiling, there is a problem. If you're constantly crying, there is a problem. That is what we're doing. So at the very least, on a practical level, we are created as human beings. We need to have variety. And I am sure you love pizza or whatever dish you love, my dear brother. If I gave that to you every single day, every single meal, every single hour, I'm pretty sure you grow to love it very quickly. Yeah. No, you will grow to hate it very quickly. So at the very least, it's moderation. My second point on this on a practical level, if you have siblings or not, and if you have younger people around you, a child, when it's yearning for its mother, it's crying. It's not depressed. It's yearning. It's yearning to be with their beloved, the person they love. We are crying not because we're depressed. We're crying because we want to be with Imam alayhi salam and all the Ahlul Bayt of Islam who gave their lives. It is not depression. It is yearning. It is missing them. If you want a real life example, go to YouTube or anything else, open it up and say, baby crying for mum. Ask your mother whether you cried for your mother. Were you depressed? I'm sure she will answer you, no, you weren't depressed. You were crying for your mum because you missed her, you needed her. Very practical points just to understand it's not depression. We're not sad. If anything, we, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt salam, have the most Eids. We don't just have Eid al-Fitr. We don't just have Eid al-Adha. Eid al-Zahra. I can carry on. Eid al-Mubahala. Eid al-Ghadir. Goodness me. If we just do all the Eids, one would say we are the most happiest people in the world, let alone just only doing sadness and depression. So those are two very practical aspects that you can apply and think about it. I'm going to ask us to summarize and close. Simply, this is a beautiful conversation, I think, and the number of questions that are coming through, it will continue. But for the sake of time, and just considering that at London anyway, we're fast approaching Maghribain. So I'm going to round it off with one or two additional questions, and then inshallah in the next 5 minutes we will close the session. So over to you now. If you want to pick out another couple of questions we can pose.
Yeah.
And then continue.
Okay, so we have how do we portray the importance of moral impact? Okay, that's a good question. Actually, that goes back to our original question. So, Assalamu alaikum. How do we portray the importance of religion to someone who may have good morals and character, but are content with that? So that's basically what we've been answering thus far. Like, why do we actually need religion, even if you don't have religion and you have good morals and character, and you think that's enough? So, I think, do we need to go into that, or have we not been?
No,
I think
that's
we've
a good one.
honestly answered that already. Or
So I
have been
think
doing.
how about I think one of the questions I think
I have one on here as well.
yeah, one of the questions I think that's come through as well is since there are so many religions to choose from, and none overtly promote worldly, immoral, or illegal acts, why is Islam superior above all?
Oh, okay, interesting.
So to simplify it even further, there's so many religions. None of them are bad. No one's saying go out, kill, loot, do all the terrible things.
Yeah.
Shout to your parents, or don't do your homework. None of them are saying those kind of things, right? So they're all telling you to do the right things. Why go with Islam?
Yeah,
I mean,
it can be very much argued that
any of
Islam is not the most peaceful religion. A lot of people will say that in the Western world, and a lot of Muslims will say that as well. So why would you not pick Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, even?
You mentioned one earlier on, the pastor wearing hat religion, the person made it. Why not follow that? I mean, you can make it up as you go along. So again, I guess the question is, there's something to choose from.
Why
None of them actually do it. Why Islam? Why Islam versus not necessarily this religion, that religion, all the others in one side of the seesaw or the scale, and Islam on the other? Why should we put Islam on one side? Sayyidina Haider, please.
Take it away.
Because of one thing, and that is the word truth. Religions, may give you peace. Many religions might give you a good feeling, but are they based on truth? The word al-Islam means submission. As-salam means peace. Al-Islam means submission. Submission to what? Who is a Muslim? A Muslim is someone who submits to one thing, that's the truth. This religion, it means submission to truth. Whatever is true, you accept it. Be it bitter, be it sweet, to be after truth. That's the meaning of Islam. That's the meaning of being a Muslim. And that's the one reason that comes to my mind. You might get a good feeling doing yoga, but is it based on truth? Will it really give you results? You might be seeing a mirage in the desert thinking it's water, running 70 years after that water to find there's nothing there except sand. Isn't it wiser first to investigate? Is it really water or is it just an illusion? You might be thinking you're at peace, but it might just be an imagination. The peace that Islam gives a person isn't a peace that requires you to be in, a nice park with birds chirping. The peace that Islam gives a person is real peace. It's not imagination. The peace that Islam is giving people is a peace that you're in the middle of a battle, seeing your loved ones die, and you have peace right there, because it's based on truth. So the one thing a person should be after is truth. Islam means submission to truth. If you're after the truth, then Islam is a religion, because it literally means being submitted to the truth, whatever the truth might be.
Thank you so much, Syed. Thank you very much. Over to Abbas.
Santam said a beautiful way of answering it. It is true. It's truth, because whilst each religion will claim to be giving the truth which every individual is seeking, amongst all of their books, none of them have a book like Quran. And just book for book, like if we are comparing the beauty of this book, nothing even comes close. So that's what Islam has. And in addition to this, we have obviously Thaqalain. So as beautiful as the Quran is, after all of the prophets and saints and religious figures of other religions, none of them are like Ali Muhammad. And so if someone says to me, why Islam? Although it depends on the circumstance, I would say to them, why do you like religion? Why are you interested? I would always go back to these two things, which no one offers, which we have. The Quran with its miraculous beauty, and Ali Muhammad, who embody the book so perfectly that The Ahlul Bayt will help a Christian understand Jesus better. The Ahlul Bayt even help Jewish people understand their prophets better. And the Ahlul Bayt will help the atheists understand themselves better. So I would use the resources of Thaqalain, which the Prophet has left for us, and argue that if Islam is the right religion, it's because of these two pillars of truth, the Quran and Ahlul Bayt.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Both beautiful answers, both the spiritual and the practical, and the moral. So alhamdulillah. We have got another couple of questions coming through.
Yeah. So I've got one here. So with morals changing all the time in the Western world, how can we use religion to our advantage, as religious morals don't tend to change? That's quite an interesting question. I personally have no idea how to answer that, so I'll give it to you guys. Sayyid.
I think the answer is in the question. The person who asked this question, obviously, they have found the answer for themselves, and this is the point. An atheist, one of the biggest arguments that we have against atheists, and they cannot answer, is how do you define what's good and bad? What's your benchmark? What do you use to define good and evil? 50 years ago, this action was disgusting in society. It was evil, it was filthy. Yes? Now it's positive. Now it's good. So is there something called reality at all? Or is it just different opinions? What makes something good? If you say, because we have an easy answer, we say God, creator of man, defines good and evil, finished. Someone who believes in God can say that morality does not change. It's something real, yes? Even if everyone has different opinion, it doesn't change the reality. This is a good thing to do because God has made it good, finished. But an atheist who has no God in the picture, and Western society is an atheist society, to be very frank. It's not a Christian society any longer. It's an atheist society. So where do you get your morals from? You're telling me helping your neighbor is good. Can you explain why? Can you back that up intellectually? What's your reason? What's your reason? Don't tell me it's a feeling, because I can come and say, well, I feel differently. I feel that hurting my neighbor is a good thing to do. Can you refute that? No, you can't. Because if it's just feelings, people have different feelings, right? If you say it's people's opinions, okay, whose opinions make things good and whose opinions make things bad? You say the majority. Okay, so does that mean, are you telling me that hurting a child, yes, an innocent child, is only bad in a society where over 50% of people say it's bad? Your conscience says no, but you can't back that up intellectually. You have no reason. What are you using for your morality? What makes something good? Just because everyone says it's good? Well, some time ago in the UK, slavery was very good. Everyone said it was good. Go to Africa, yes, pick up some black slaves. They weren't slaves, they were free people. Take them over in those boats, in those conditions, sell them, change their names, change their religion, brand them, with numbers. That's a good thing to do. Are you telling me that was a good thing to do? You'll say no. Why? We have an answer to that why. Our morality doesn't change with people's changing opinions, but your morality does. So this is a question that we as believers ask those who are secular. Where are you getting your morality from? And this is somewhere where they cannot answer.
Yeah, this is a very beautiful point, because in the West, there is a crisis of morality. It's a very good point. The moment they took religion away from the state, like true religion, they had to decide, where do we get morality from? They had to go somewhere else. And in the process of the development of Western society, they have made so many mistakes, moral mistakes, which they made because they didn't have religion. They did slavery because they didn't have religion. They did the World Wars I and II came from a lack of religion. All of these activities came because they did not have a coherent way of sourcing morality for their actions. And in all of these cases, it's true. They lacked a source from which makes things good and bad. And what did they make it? They made it relativism. They said relativism, meaning one society does what it thinks is good and bad. The society does what it thinks is good and bad. Everyone do what they think is good and bad. There's no real good and right and wrong. There's just what we think is right and wrong in that society. And through that, many people suffered, many people died. And you'll see now, when a new issue comes up, like a new moral issue, that some of the decisions which a person who lacks a religion makes in choosing right and wrong are barbaric. Like they'll think murdering people can be justified, or war or conflict can be justified. And the worst thing is, because they lack religion as their primary reason for right and wrong, they then use religion as their secondary justification for the action. So, for example, they'll do slavery, but then you'll have words of pastors and people in the church justifying religion from the church, justifying slavery from the church. World War II, justifying it from the church. Whereas in Islam, when we face new issues, we have an existing body of work like the Ahlul Bayt and Quran, which we have the institution of ijtihad, which helps us to interpret our reality today using our morals. Without this type of institution, this mechanism for knowing right and wrong, we'd be lost. So the answer, as respected Sayyid already said, and I'm just adding to what was already a complete answer, we asked them, when you determine right and wrong, what do you use? And when they ask what we use, we have a very perfect system to show them as a divine alternative.
Son, thank you so much. We'll take one final question before we close it up for the close the session. And that question is, and I think it's a beautiful one to end on, Islam is often referred to be more than a religion. Please, can you shed light on what is meant by this? Once again, Islam is often referred to being more than a religion. Please, can you shed some light on this and what this really means? Sayyid Abbas, would you like to kick us off, please?
Sayyid, with your permission, inshallah.
Please.
Because we were discussing this earlier, actually, about Islam being a religion, it goes back to how the secularists view religion as belonging only in the private sphere, and how the religious believe religion is holistic. Every aspect of reality can become sacred. It can become religious. Even walking in the street, or as Sayyid mentioned, the way you interact with the nature can become religious. Everything has the capacity for being sacred. Whereas in the kind of secular view, no, religion only belongs, don't wear a cross in public, don't wear hijab in public, nothing to do with public, only in private. They're trying to kind of stunt the religion. So that's the first part. So the first answer is, we believe that Islam is more than just a religion in that sense, because it impacts on every aspect of your reality, like every aspect. The other point I wanted to mention on this was that whilst we believe that the religion of Islam is holistic and it affects like every aspect, we also believe that Allah observes every aspect of your life, like every interaction and your niyat and your thoughts, that material and immaterial. So here, more than a religion means more than what's visible. We have an entire universe of that which is invisible. In fact, Allama Irshad once said, not Allama Irshad, Allama Iqbal, sorry, once said, Irshad is different. Iqbal once said that they think that the bee belongs only for transferring honey from between plants. Whereas we believe even the bee does ibadat of Allah Azza wa Jal. Like your whole mindset changes. Everything has the capacity for religion. So when you say to me more than religion, I answer that since everything, all creation has its own tasbih, own worship, everything has its own, exists in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. And how empowering, how beautiful is it for me as an individual to see myself as part of this system. I don't even deserve to exist, to be here, and yet I'm surrounded by the signs of Allah everywhere. So Islam being more than religion means I am more than just a person. I'm part of the divine system.
Thank you so much. Sayyid Haider, please.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you define religion. If you define religion in the generic sense, yes, of having a worldview and a practical way to live your life, then Islam is a religion, nothing more, nothing less. If you define religion like Sayyid Abbas says, and I think the people who mention Islam is not only a religion, they're trying to use this definition, right? A more commonly accepted definition, maybe, perhaps, that religion is just something you do in your personal life. It's just something you do, between yourself and God, and that's it. It's got nothing to do with your practical life, nothing to do with your family life, nothing to do with political life, with social life, with anything else. It's just between you and how to worship God. And again, worship being only praying and fasting, right? If that's the definition of religion, then yes, Islam is more than a religion. It's an entire way of life. It's a system, it teaches man everything he needs in order to live in this world in the best manner, and in order to live in the next world in the best manner. It teaches man everything he needs or she needs in order to be healthy, both physically and spiritually and mentally, right? So from that perspective, it's not only a religion in that limited definition, but rather it's a complete program for man to be able to live healthily in the real sense of the word in all of his different aspects, and in order for man to attain his absolute potential.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With that, I would like to say thank you to both of our esteemed guests for taking part in this conversation, as it was intended to be a conversation for all of us to share our perspectives and views from, I guess, from our couch, as it were, to the Hosa, to somewhere where Abbas is. I'm not sure, but
wherever it is.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
That's just linking back to an earlier conversation we were having. So you can call it the inside banter. But nonetheless,
they'll be wondering now, where's Abbas?
Where is Abbas? Aren't we all wondering where is Abbas?
It's confidential. We won't release that information right now.
So nonetheless, thank you so much to our esteemed guests for joining us.
All the wisdom.
It's been.
Yeah, inshallah, we will. This isn't the first and last. Inshallah, we will be back with more sessions, maybe with different guests. I really want the same guests because they're so amazing and so wisdomous.
Maybe with different hosts as well. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
So, with that, I would like to say I would like to do a very short summary for our guests, and our viewers, who I would like to also thank very much for all our viewers for joining, taking time out to take part in this conversation. Inshallah, in the future, where we are going to make it so that you can actually ask the questions directly, should you wish to do so, and make it even more interactive. The purpose of these sessions from the beginning, when we sort of had the idea, was for it to be a conversation. It is intended to take it from our, as I said, proverbial couch to you guys, to everybody. With all the terrible thing that happened with the pandemic, one thing is amazing, that the word of the Ahlul Bayt and the conversations have gone global, even more so global, and people are having conversations like we're doing right now, and that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
To summarize our conversation today, the question that we had set out for ourselves, the subject we were discussing was, why do we even need a religion? We covered right from the beginning different definitions, both from a Islamic perspective, specifically the Jafari school of thought perspective on what is defined by Islam and a definition of religion, but also literally the textbook, the dictionary definition, and which span from being a controlling power to devoting yourself to certain practices, and from the Quran itself, as Sayyid explained to us, verse as a reminder, chapter 30, verse 30, there is a divine nature to do this, and all creatures innately have a search for purpose to follow. We then went on to talk about different topics, including if someone is morally right, why do they need it? We also covered the topic of practical aspects of physical, mental, and spiritual health, and we learned that Islam is a holistic religion. It helps us in all aspects of life. And then, of course, our final questions, which I hope that you and many were a part of. So as you can see, what we can summarize here is that Islam is not just a religion, it's greater than a religion, it's more than religion. It is, for us, as we all know, a way of life and something that's beneficial from all of those different aspects. So with that, I will say thank you so much for joining, and inshallah we'll be in touch soon again, both Nyle and I, and perhaps some more guests and hosts to broaden and brighten the conversation up a little bit more. So thank you once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
One last thing, I promised Abbas that I would shout out his Spotify playlist. He's actually doing a podcast right now, which is called Ashura Reflections. So be sure to go and check that one out. It's amazing. Got a lot of fruitful conversations on there as well. So definitely check that one out. And from us here at Al Nur, we bid you good hafiz. Thank you very much.